Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. Today I'm chatting with Dillon, and Dillon, you have an amazing story, but before we start talking about what you do, talk about who you are. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself.
I love that intro. That was exciting. My name is Dillon. I work on a little project called Live for Another, and it's basically my friends and I trying to do creative and fun acts of kindness as a way to kind of get through the craziness that is life. If things are bothering us, things are on our mind, we want to learn something new, we find a way to apply kindness to it. And it usually ends up best described as shenanigans most of the time.
I love that shenanigans. That is so cool. Now, what made you decide to start this journey?
It was something that took a while to really figure out, that kindness projects are important to me. I mean, everyone likes to be kind, right? But I didn't realize that it was so important to me until college, which kind of was the whole entire backstory of why we're here. My friend Chris, he was given a terminal cancer diagnosis. They gave him 1 to 2 years to live. Of course, when he called me and told me that, I heard 1 year to live, because it's a difficult sentence to hear, so you kind of just assume the worst. But after a brief conversation with him and realizing that if there is a timeline on our time together, that I don't really want to spend it going to college like I was. I wanted to spend that time with him pursuing a bucket list together. So I dropped out of college, and we put together a bucket list, and we basically shared it online, and our story and who we were and things like that. And it went very, very viral, which meant that really our bucket list, the dreams that we had, the things we wanted to achieve in that year timeline, were possible because of strangers on the internet who, I guess, heard what we were trying to say, and they contributed kindness and made it all possible. So we were able to do some really cool stuff with that. We met celebrities, we fed the homeless people, we were on TV a bunch, just big dreams for us. And it got me thinking, the entire time we were going through it, we were very fortunate and very grateful for the opportunities that people helped us with. But we also felt guilty in a sense, or more accurately, we felt like we wanted to kind of turn all of the attention on us and use it as a way to help other people. Mm-hmm. And our first attempt to do that was number 4 on our bucket list was to break a world record. And we set out to break the world record for the most bone marrow donor signups. Mm-hmm. It was, he had leukemia, and so he needed a bone marrow donor. And part of us thought that maybe if we can get enough awareness that we could beat the statistics. It was very unlikely, but we thought, hey, maybe we can raise enough awareness and people can, if we break this world record, there'll be enough donors to save his life. And thanks to our community, the people who were watching, they heard our call to action. They helped us break that world record. Over 13,000 people signed up to donate their bone marrow, which is still a crazy number to think about. But more crazy than that, a couple months later, we come to find out that one of those people, one of these strangers on the internet that just heard our story, heard what we were doing, they were his donor. They ended up matching with him, and here we are today. He is now cancer-free, and he beat cancer, which we had already sort of felt like it was incredible that we had so much attention and kindness coming our way. When that happened, it was like, okay, this is insane. We really got to figure out a way to try and reflect this. It started off as a place of guilt. I didn't think we necessarily deserved that kind of kindness. Mm-hmm. So we tried to give it to other people. And then, that inspired me to realize that being kind is something that you can kind of do on your being kind in a way that is interesting to you is really fulfilling. And that's kind of what Live for Another is all about. So we've been doing kindness projects since then. We've helped other cancer patients, a couple other people with their bucket list. We've helped people with other terminal conditions. But really, we've also done weird stuff. At one point, this map behind me, I threw a dart at that map, and then I lived wherever it landed for as long as it took to have a positive impact on someone's life. So there's a wide spectrum, but ultimately it comes down to just ways to think about each other and what we can do to help other people in ways that make sense with the capacity that we have as individuals.
Wow. I mean, that's such a big impact. You originally started out to help your friend and you were getting all this kindness. So you decided you wanted to show kindness in return, and your friend ends up finding his donor on this kindness project that you set out to do. Wow. That's just amazing.
Yeah. It was spectacular. It really showed how important those sometimes brief interactions you have with people online. Your friend might share some sort of kindness story, right? And you watch and you're like, oh, that's so sweet, you like it. In our case, like, those were real people that really did something substantial for our life. And that's a big thing too, is like, let's try to break down like that internet barrier and try to remind each other that there's an opportunity for us to work together to make our lives a little bit easier.
So let's talk about you throwing the dart at the map and living somewhere until you made a positive impact. Let's talk about that, because that's something that not a lot of people do.
Yeah, it was a crazy idea. I mentioned earlier, like, it's these kindness projects in a sense are a way for us to overcome what we're going through. In that case, it was after a big breakup. We were together for a long time, so naturally it was pretty devastating for me. And I was doing a lot of thinking, and for some reason, I don't know where it came from, I had the idea. A caveat to the idea is wherever it landed, I was purposely not bringing my cell phone, and I deleted my social media and like no internet, things like that. The idea was I wanted to kind of prove to myself that I can do things on my own, I guess. I don't know. I was going through a breakup. I was emotional, but nonetheless, I threw the dart, and I threw it so poorly at this map. You notice it's a US map. I threw it so poorly that it took me several throws, but once it finally hit something on the map, it was actually sort of like the outer border, which wasn't labeled on the map, but it turned out to be Vancouver, Canada. So I actually ended up living in Canada for a couple months. And when I first got there, I started off by trying to do acts of kindness that were sort of like the generic acts of kindness, I guess, the ones that initially come to your mind, right? Like paying for someone at a coffee shop or helping the homeless or things like that. And it just didn't feel like me. It didn't feel like something that helped me figure out what I was trying to figure out. And so I tried a little bit more unique stuff. At the time, you might remember there was a plane flying over Ukraine that was shot down. There were a lot of people from Vancouver who were on that plane, so it was kind of a big deal there. I did some fundraising by selling cake pops on the side of the street to try to donate to one of the family, at the funeral of one of the families who had died on the plane, which was like not at all a common act of kindness. It was kind of a weird thing. But even then, when I did that, it didn't feel like I found what I was looking for. So I kept pursuing a sort of a kindness thing that I could do in Vancouver and then officially go home. What I ended up deciding is the reason I came up with that idea and a large thing that I felt while I was there was isolation and loneliness. That was like a big problem for me at the time. And so I decided I wanted to focus the kindness on like loneliness in a way. So I put together, I called it Loneliness Sucks, a board game night for people who don't want to go. And it was basically like an event acknowledging how hard it is for certain people to like meet new people, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then I got on like the largest newspaper in Vancouver, some radio shows. Over 100 people signed up to go to this thing, which is crazy. That was like, okay, I figured out why I'm here. That was really satisfying to me. I felt like I achieved my mission. I was very impressed with myself. The night of the event, over 100 people signed up. None of them showed up. So it was an event targeting loneliness where a bunch of people said they wanted to go, but nobody actually came. And I just thought that was a beautiful sort of representation of loneliness, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately at the end of that helped me realize, helped me through trying all these kindness and stuff, realize that loneliness was a big problem for me. And part of it was, in many cases, making myself more lonely than I actually am. So in that case, the documentary that I made while I was there ended up with inviting my family to join me in Vancouver and just kind of enjoying it, I guess. So that one in particular was a big personal growth story compared to some of the other ones. But yeah, it was a crazy adventure. Learned a lot, met a lot of really cool people, and I still get calls from the Canadian Blood Bank asking me to donate blood because I donated blood while I was there. Every time they call me, I'm like, listen, I don't live in Canada. I'm not going to be there anytime soon. I would love to donate blood, but I think you're calling the wrong guy. But yeah, it was an adventure.
That is so funny. So what other adventures, what other things, acts of kindness have you done? Because I think a lot of people seem to think that they're being kind doesn't matter anymore. And a lot of kindness is not out. People are not being kind to each other. So maybe this will inspire other people to being kind.
Yeah, that's the hope. I think, with the state of the world these days, it's easy to assume the worst in society. Try to help out a little bit there. But what's really important to me is like, you don't have to do the act of kindness that everyone else is doing. You just do what feels right to you, and whatever you're able to do is enough. You don't need to be, no one needs to be Mr. Rogers, right? Like, as long as you're conscious of your effect on other people. And my favorite project in that way, I'm big into video games, always loved them. In high school, I started a charity where we brought video games to kids in the hospital, and I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot about just what's important to me. And we kind of took that and then applied it to Live for Another, which basically just means we took it to the extreme. So we packed up 15 suitcases full of video game consoles, and we challenged ourselves to visit as many children's hospitals as possible in just 7 days. We wanted to kind of communicate to people that visiting a children's hospital particularly is not something that is it's attainable, right? The average person can do it, and to show you that, we're going to go to the extreme and visit a bunch in a short amount of time. And that was amazing. We lost a lot of sleep because we traveled to like 10 different states in that week, so it was just jumping around. But yeah, it was amazing too, because all the places we stopped at were locations of our viewers. So we asked them to reach out, and we said, hey, together, you and I will walk into a children's hospital together. And then we kind of bounced around. And I just love that because it was something really dear to my heart, video games. And it was really amazing to see the people who have been supporting us and to like have an impact with them. And I think there's a really beautiful story in there. I'm still editing that because, like I said, we got really tired. So there's a lot of footage of just us being hooligans and like losing our minds, just like filming the floor because we're so tired. We don't know what's happening. But yeah, there's a really beautiful story that unfolded as well there. It's one of my favorite.
Where does this desire to do kindness come from? Besides, your what happened to your friend, but was that something that you've always done? Because you talked about, you did this project in high school. Was this something that at the very beginning of your life you were always wanting to do things to help others, or?
I still haven't completely figured it out. I'm still trying to, but my theory is, I think a lot of people, they have this impression or this suggestion that being kind needs to be a entirely selfless act. That I always mention Mr. Rogers because he can be very selfless in his actions, but people kind of compare themselves to a figure like that, and they assume that if they do an act of kindness, maybe they feel guilty or something, that it's benefiting them. For me, I definitely think it's because it makes me feel like I have a place in the world, I guess, which is kind of deep, right? Mm-hmm. I wish I could say it's because I just like helping people, but the reality is, like, I think it helps me. It just helps me understand my place in the world, especially with Live for Another. I'm really interested in technology and like social media and stuff like that. So it's kind of a way to take my hobbies and kind of just share the experiences of life with people. And kindness is a great way to do that because it kind of immediately breaks down the barriers you have with strangers. If you walk up to someone and ask them a question about sports or something, there might be a little bit of hesitancy. But if you walk up and you're kind to them, you're immediately sort of closer to them. So yeah, I don't have a straightforward answer to why I do it. I just think it's the way that we are doing it is really, really compelling to me, because it makes me feel like I'm making a difference, I guess. Yeah.
And making an impact on the world so that maybe future generations will also show kindness to others.
Yeah. I would love if my kids could someday see these videos, and it's a little streamlined parenting. Yeah, just be a good person.
So did you have one person that you looked up to that said, I'm going to emulate them, I'm going to be like them, to be kind like them, like a role model growing up? Or was that something that you just kind of did on your own?
Yeah, I don't think so. That's something I've always, anytime someone asks me like the role model question, I don't really have one that stands out. I think everyone inspires me just a little bit, but there's not one person that inspires me a lot.
Well, I like the fact that you said everybody inspires you a little bit, because a lot of people, they don't see inspiration out of everyday people. They look at someone great like Barack Obama, or, the president, or like a Supreme Court justice, or their mayor, or somebody like that, and say that's the person I want to be. But the fact that you're looking at everyday people and saying, hey, everybody inspires me a little bit, and you see qualities in them, that's really, really noteworthy.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to keep that mindset. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, but yeah, I think everyone has something special about them, and I think there's key takeaways from everyone. Whether that's creative inspiration, like work ethic inspiration, kindness inspiration, everybody's got something that you can learn from.
Now, you mentioned in your bio that you helped a cancer patient, a young girl, with billboards. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that's Lexi. She was, after my friend had found his bone marrow donor, we were like really focused on helping cancer patients, because that just made the most sense at the time. So I was scrolling through my social media feed, saw a picture of her battling chemo on her 21st birthday. And I sent probably the weirdest message I'll ever send anyone, because I didn't fully know the idea. I just said like, hey, it'd be cool to help you with your bucket list. Do you want to come out to California? Where are you? Kind of thing. Probably really sketchy from her perspective, but luckily she was willing to respond, and we worked it out. And together we came up with her bucket list and things that she wanted to achieve, and then we sort of just got to work. She's from Ohio, so basically what we'll do is, well, these days a little different with the pandemic, but before we would, every 6 months or so, we'd fly her out to California for like a week, and we'd cross 5 items off her bucket list, something like that. In this case, as soon as she landed in the airport, we were driving down the highway, and then her face was on a billboard. I think that was number 34 on her bucket list, was to be on a billboard. And we wanted to, again, take it to the extreme. So Live for knows all about. We got many billboards across town, and they were positioned in such a way where, as we were doing other bucket list items for her, they were nearby. So that week in particular, she wanted to visit a children's hospital, so we were doing that. And as we were leaving, there was another billboard there with her on it. She wanted to walk a fashion runway. We didn't really feel very satisfied with just connecting with an existing runway and having her walk a line. So we constructed our own fashion show where she was not only the model but also the designer. Wow. And about 10 minutes away from the venue, there she was on a billboard. Things like that. But yeah, that was really beautiful, that experience for me. I feel like being on a billboard is sort of like a shorthand for the impact you have. That's like the stereotype for like, wow, you're successful. So it was really emotional for me to see that, because it was cool that something we built together could get to that level. And of course the impact it had on Lexi was pretty spectacular as well.
So let's talk about the funding. Where do you find the funding for all these? Because obviously billboards and building the fashion runway and all these, and the video games and moving to Canada and all this thing. So how do you fund all these projects?
Still definitely trying to figure that out. I don't want to pretend like we have unlimited funding. A lot of it I do like part-time technology work, contract work. And that allows me to survive. And then what we get through donations and t-shirt sales is what funds all the rest of the stuff. So yeah, we're very fortunate to have people to support us. And, you know, I mean, every single organization out there says every person matters, but like it genuinely matters. It's a big deal because we do have really big ideas. It means so much to have people support us. Just last week, we had someone who had never been a part of the community before. They bought a t-shirt. Every time someone buys a t-shirt, I write like a note about what we hope to do with the funds and, you know, a little bit about what's going on. She got her t-shirt. She wrote back to me and mentioned that she had bought the t-shirt for her son, who, because of the pandemic, he has cancer. And because of the pandemic, he hasn't been able to leave. He's been under a strict medical quarantine. But this t-shirt was like sort of a little glimpse of hope for him, right? And I love that because it was great to be able to have that conversation with someone. It wasn't like a faceless thing. But what I'm especially excited for is we came up with the idea of doing like a little gift box for him. And so we're going to try to rally together the rest of the donors to come up with like a gift box for him and then surprise another donor. And that's just been on my mind. That's why I bring it up. I'm excited. But yeah, genuinely, like, you know, we write letters back and forth. We email each other back and forth. Like even people that comment consistently, like that always gets me really excited. Because we 100% rely on donations and t-shirts and sticker sales.
Wow. So how can people donate? That's another thing. Just go ahead and pitch and do your donation because this is an amazing cause. I'll give you a little bit of backstory, especially since you're dealing with cancer patients. Cancer has affected my life twice, and I've lost both my dad and my sister to cancer. I mean, my sister was only 27 years old when she died, and she never got to meet all three of my girls. I was pregnant with my oldest daughter when she died, and she's been gone for a while now. But, you know, to see someone out there using and trying to help these patients that are going through probably the most horrific time of their lives to just make them feel so much better. It just, oh my God, I'm tearing up now just talking about it.
Tough. Yeah.
It's tough, but to know somebody's out there that wants to show them kindness and say, hey, you know what? You know, we're in here with you. Like you dropped everything and dropped out of college to help your friend, and you did the world's record for the leukemia, for the bone marrow drive, and then he finds a donor off that, but you also helped other people as well with that drive. So
thank you. that means a lot. Yeah, it's amazing. You really do learn a lot thinking about it so much. But yeah, if anyone wants to get involved, they can head over to our website. Really, everything's there. liveforanother.com. Check out a t-shirt. Every t-shirt sold, we do an act of kindness, make a donation. And even if you aren't able to do that, completely understand. You can join our email newsletter and you know, just stay up to date and respond to them, so I know I'm not sending emails out into the void. so I know there's actually people reading them.
Now, you keep saying college and high school, so I'm going to ask you a question. It's probably going to blow my mind, but you look very young. So how old are you?
22.
See, I was
I'm
like
a little baby.
you're like a year younger than my middle daughter. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot to learn.
Yeah, but you have so much more experience in the world, and with a lot of that generation was all about the me, and the generations that are coming up are all about me, and you want you to focus on everybody else. So that I want to just applaud you for that, because a lot of the younger generations are more focused on what they can do for themselves, and they're not worried about what their impact on the world or their impact on their community.
Yeah, that's one thing that I want to try to develop a little bit more is, you know, people around my age. I think there is that connotation, but I don't know. Of course, I'm biased, right? But I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think it's just, I don't know. When I talk to my friends and stuff, there's like a lot of pessimism. So I feel like they're like anxious of the future, and it makes it hard for us to overcome it. And I just say that because that's something I really want to try to get better at, is give people who do have a hard time looking out for others because they're so overwhelmed, whether that's stress, anxiety, depression, like all these things, right? I want to give them opportunity to be a part of something. And, you know, if someone out there is like, I think everyone is inherently good. And hopefully we can kind of like bring that out of them a little bit. And I think with my generation, I'm sure there's probably the same percentage as every other generation of people that are self-centered. I just think it's a different kind a little bit.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I think the big thing is like social media, right? It makes it seem like everyone in my generation is so self-centered because they're posting selfies all the time, which is something, honestly, I don't understand. But it happens. But, you know, at the same time, like, I think we do that because that's how we get interaction these days, and that's how we get validation and stuff. So it almost feels like it's not our fault in a way. Anyway, those are my theories of society.
So what's up next for you? I mean, you have this amazing foundation, this amazing website. What's up next for you?
COVID was definitely a challenge because we do come up with these really big ideas, and you know, they're already hard enough, but with a pandemic on top of it, it makes it even more intimidating. So we kind of slowed down a little bit. So I just want to continue growing to the point where we can come up with our large ideas and do them as often as we come up with them. At the moment, there's a little bit of like, do it and then sort of sit around and wait, save up for a couple months and then do another one. Some of the things that I would love to be able to do just on a whim is the world's tallest trash can. We have the blueprints prepared for a 16,000 gallon trash can, and we want to sort of tour it around the West Coast, filling it up and giving an opportunity for people to come by and contribute trash from like their local park or river or something, to kind of like a physical representation of act locally, think globally. It's like, you know, pick up trash in your neighborhood and then come meet us at the nearest downtown and fill up the world's biggest trash can together. We also, I've been getting into cooking more, and I would love to rent out a food truck for like a month and travel across the United States. And every city we stop in, partner with like local fresh produce, food, farmers markets, chefs, things like that, to make like local culinary meals and then give them out to homeless people. You know, starting in California, we're making tri-tip, we're making tacos, we drive over to Texas, we make barbecue, these kind of things. Just because it sounds fun, I think. But yeah, tons of big ideas like that we could come up with forever, but figuring out a way to be able to do them consistently. And that's pretty much the goal. Yeah.
So you keep saying you have tons of big ideas. Where do the inspiration comes from?
I have no idea. Wherever, you know, I think some people, they might be really good artists and they see a guy walking down the street with an interesting hat, and the next thing you know, they can draw a beautiful painting, or paint a beautiful painting rather. I guess in my case, I see some random thing and whatever's going on in my brain, that triggers the idea of building a giant trash can. I don't know where it comes from. It's weird. I think it's just kind of, now we're committed to the mindset of these kind of things, and so it just naturally kind of makes me more prone to be thinking about them. Yeah. You're
kind of making kindness fun. Like you're doing that, like clean up your park, clean up your neighborhood, but then help fill the giant trash can.
Yeah, that is a huge source of inspiration for me. I mentioned that charity that I started in high school. I started the volunteer process in high school trying to buff up my resume, right, to get into a good college. And I was doing the standard stuff. I was volunteering at food banks, volunteering at the hospital, doing these things. And I hated it, right? It was like I go to the hospital and I fill out paperwork. I'm not helping anyone. I mean, yeah, I'm helping the nurses do less paperwork, but like I feel like I can do more. And in my case, it's not exciting for me. At the food bank, we weren't allowed to like directly interact with the homeless. We would just fill bags in the back. And in both those cases, I know ultimately it is making an impact, but I wanted something a little bit more fun. So I came up with my own, and yeah, that's really important to me. And I know like filling bags is fun for some people, but in my case, I guess I just wanted something a little bit different. So I started the video game charity. And that's been a big thing for a long time. Is it's kind of like an opportunity for the people who would like to help, but they don't want to go do like the normal stuff.
Yeah.
Let's have fun with it, right? Being kind can be fun. It doesn't need to be the same thing over and over again.
So who helps you run all your stuff for your foundation?
I am the only one who thinks about this 24/7 full time. But I do have a couple of people help out like part-time with editing videos, sending emails, things like that. So we got Ben, who is much better at editing videos. We got Jocelyn, who helps with social media. Max is good at writing. And then a couple of my friends nearby, Joel and Drew, they help me. They're in this upside down picture right there behind me. They help with like filming the videos and telling the stories. So it's a small group of people, but we have fun.
Is there ever a time when they're like, no, Dillon, we can't do this. This is way too much. Let's scale it back a little bit.
Typically, yeah, that definitely does happen. It's less like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, Dillon, and more like, I don't understand what you're talking about, Dillon. So it's kind of more of like a no, we shouldn't do that, and more of a please make that make more sense to me before we do anything. Make sure it's like organized and not just randomness.
So are you super organized, or is it randomness a lot of times?
That's something I've been struggling with for a long time, and I struggle with every day is to stay organized. It's really, really tough.
So who keeps you on track, organized with keeping everything together for an event or for something that you're planning, a random act of kindness?
I think just meeting with everyone and like talking with them definitely helps. But as far as like someone whose role it is to do that, that would be my to-do list software is the best thing. I definitely need a lot of improvement there. It's something, it's hard, right? Because if your business was to host, let's say it's a more simplified version of Live for Another, right? Where it's like every month we do an event for cancer patients here in Sacramento. You can kind of develop a process for that, right? Where it's like, okay, first we start by calls, then we book the venue, etc. But when 1 month you're going on a 7-day road trip with $15,000 worth of video games, all the logistics around that are completely different than the logistics of building a candy trebuchet and launching it at kids. Like it's really hard to develop a process. So I think that takes my inherent ADHD and it makes it even harder because it's such a mess. It's also new. Everything is so different. It really makes it tricky.
I love how you mentioned the ADHD and you laughed about it because that's everybody on ADHD. Their minds are all over the place. It's like they go from one place to another. Because my middle daughter, the one that I said you were like, she was a year older than you. She has ADHD as well. Yeah. But yet her detail to design work, because she just graduated with her bachelor's in fine arts and interior architecture. Nice. Her detail for design work is like on point. Like she is so super focused. So I can imagine when you're working on a project, you are super focused on that project.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's necessarily true. I focus on particular parts of it.
See.
Yeah. So like I said, I really like technology. So if we're doing some sort of social media campaign and I need to build like a website landing page or an email automation all day long, like I'll forget to eat while I'm doing that, right? Which of course is not good, but it happens. But then when it comes down to other things, I really, really struggle to get through it. And that's, some people focus better than others in different categories and stuff, but that's the way it usually works for me. Or like editing videos is really hard for me, but which is what I do a lot. So yeah, it really just depends.
But you talked about technology, which is something you love, so you're super focused on that. Whereas design work is something she loves, so she's super focused.
Yeah.
Something when you love, you're super focused. If it's something that you really don't care about, you're like, I'd rather not do this right now.
Yeah, it's really hard to get into it and get in your flow.
So what big project do you have up next? I know you said you were thinking about the giant trash can, and COVID has kind of thrown wrenches in all the places. But are you doing something locally, or are you trying to do something nationwide?
Right now, I'm trying to solve the problem of my distracted brain by really trying to develop consistent small things. I think it helps people be a part of the community when, once a week we spend time working on a project, as opposed to once every 3 months. So I wish there was like some big monolith of a project that we're working on, and they're definitely in the back burner. But at the moment, it's like, how do we establish a baseline so that we can grow this? Because we can count on big projects going viral once a year, but that's not really the way to get this to the point where we want to get it. So we're working on smaller projects inspired by people. So oftentimes when we post a video, we'll ask what they want us to do next. We just started using, it's a kindness wheel. It's basically like a prize wheel with a bunch of acts of kindness on it. Spin it and then we'll go do that. But they're typically small. So like recently what we've done is hand flowers to strangers. We bought out an entire street vendor's stock so that like he can go home early. Apparently this guy drives like 5 hours every day to go sell these oranges on the side of the road. He was able to get off at 11 a.m. instead of 5 p.m. We gave like a thank you gift basket to a fast food worker. One that was themed as her favorite movie. So on a Thursday, we went in and said, hey, what's your favorite movie? And then a couple days later, we came back with a gift basket saying thank you for her hard work, themed as that movie. So things like that are fun, but just not quite like massive coordinating scale. And now that we're starting to flesh those things out, get a little bit better at being consistent, we're starting to think more about the bigger projects. Like recently, a friend of mine, she passed away, which obviously brings up a whole lot of emotions. But she was really sort of encouraging of these ideas. So I've been thinking about kindness projects related to sort of how to memorialize her. And the one that I'm thinking about now is to fundraise to gather as many flowers as I can, and then place a flower on every single gravestone at a nearby cemetery, as just sort of a way to, I guess, think about those people one last time and do it on behalf of my friend Sahara, which is sort of like a mid-scale one. But yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, but that whole thing that you just talked about, thanking a fast food worker, thanking someone like going through Starbucks, and if you go through Starbucks, giving the barista a tip, because a lot of people don't think about tipping them. Or things like that. I bet you when you bought the street vendor oranges, I bet you didn't keep those oranges. I bet you gave those oranges away, correct?
Yeah, we took it to the homeless shelter.
See, so you had an act of kindness for him, and then you passed that act of kindness on more. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, in that case, we had to, because we would have died of vitamin C overdose. But yeah, no, definitely. There's multiple opportunities in one act of kindness, I think.
So how can people get involved? I never asked you that before, besides looking on your website, because I know you have a group as well.
Yeah. So we mainly post anything we do, we post to our Facebook group, Daily Acts of Kindness, Facebook page, Live for Another, or our TikTok, which is Dillon Hill. It's my personal TikTok. But yeah, those are pretty much the main places. That's the easiest way to get involved. But I think the big thing is the email newsletter, because it's much easier to stay in touch that way. Get like people's feedback and stuff. And which you can do on our website.
Yeah.
If someone has an act of kindness idea, let me know. Or one thing I'm trying to gather right now is fortune cookies. I've made these custom fortune cookies with like compliments in them. One says, you're the most handsome man I've ever met. Another one says, your eyes are beautiful. Your shirt looks nice on you. Things like that. If anyone has compliments that we should put inside of fortune cookies, let me know. It's a unique way. It's a fun way, act of kindness, because you can give it to someone. But it's like giving a compliment. You surprise the other person, but yourself, you know what's happening. These are fun because you give it to them and you're like, am I going to compliment them as if they're a handsome man, or as if they're, these things. And so it's kind of a gamble. You give them a fortune cookie, figure out what happens next. But it is based on kindness. So yeah, kind of interesting.
That also could backfire if you give it to a woman, you call her a man. That could backfire.
Yeah, maybe just do that with people you know and not strangers. Yeah. Or, hey, maybe that's a good icebreaker to give it to a stranger, and it compliments their long hair, of which they don't have. I don't know.
Give it to a bald man who has long hair.
Yeah.
So, is there one last nugget that you want to leave us with?
No, I don't think so. I've done a whole lot of Dillon philosophy talk today, so I think the most inspirational give has already been burned out. I just think that if people are feeling like the world is crazy these days and they don't know where to start, or they do know where to start and they've been trying to figure out a way to let it out, I think we are a candid kindness is like what the goal is. It's not going to be something where, it's not some cheesy like, oh, we saved everyone's life by giving this homeless guy a burger. I think it's just a couple of people, a group of kids trying to do genuine acts of kindness. And if that sounds interesting, like, there's tons of ways to get involved, and it genuinely means a lot to us. It has a huge impact. And yeah, you can join the newsletter for free, or you can donate $1 million for $1 million.
$1 million. So, Dillon, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing about your acts of kindness, and tell people where they can find you again.
liveforanother.com.
And guys, we will